Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we're going to give our first impressions of Freelancers, a Crossroads game. Which, this one's coming from Plathead Games, who has done all the Crossroads games, and I think it's been Forgotten Waters and Dead of Winter. I think are there other ones in the series, so to say. It's not really a series, but in this Crossroads. And I would say, including this one, every time it's kind of changed a little bit as to how that system works.
Definitely the biggest change was, I guess if it is a series, then from Dead of Winter to Forgotten Waters, I would say this is a lot closer to Forgotten Waters than Forgotten Waters was to Dead of Winter, at least gameplay-wise, because they have the app website implementation now. So, yeah, I don't know if I noticed all that many changes. I mean, there were some, but I guess when I think of the crossroads and kind of running into things and kind of deciding, sometimes unintentionally, what happens later on, I didn't feel any big changes here for this one.
Oh, okay. I guess I just thought seemed like there was a little bit more of a mystery with Forgotten Waters as to what you were going to find as you were sailing across the seas. Maybe a little bit more unsure.
This was the introductory scenario.
That's true. So we've only played one game of it, and it was the first one that it recommends. So this is based on that one play, not the whole thing, obviously, but from that
slight
one.
Spoilers as well, possibly.
Yes, so. Potentially. But yeah, so I guess it just.
I
that was where I thought, like, initially, it's just kind of on a card and could happen and things like that. For the Crossroads part of it. And yeah, the Forgotten Waters, if you haven't played it, it introduces an app, and then you are kind of doing various actions on a page, and then based on that, you're doing some dice roll to check to see if you met some requirements, and that'll trigger something else. This one has very similar to that, but I guess I felt like the big difference was for kind of maybe the system was, I think you had a little bit more of an idea of maybe what you were doing in this one, or where you were going.
Yeah, especially with the map being printed from the start. Although they, spoiler, they do have you add some things to the map throughout there, which did introduce some extra routes to go, which it was introductory. So I think they could definitely do more of that later on. But yeah, Forgotten Waters, you are just kind of going out sailing and not really knowing what's happening. This kind of gives a description of the different locations and what to expect there.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, otherwise very, very, very close to Forgotten Waters in comparison to Dead of Winter, feeling very, very different. So yeah, I was excited about this one because if you watched our channel, Forgotten Waters is one of my favorite games, and with more and more plays, it's I've liked it more and more. It's really the only thing holding it back maybe a little bit is one or maybe two things is the time, the length of play, and then kind of the limited kind of scenarios or stories. Kind of just give you so many to do. I guess I haven't really looked to see if there's like any fan created ones out there or anything like that. So maybe there's more to that content. Let us know in the comments below if there is additional content for it, because I'm sure that could be really cool. But yeah, this one is kind of similar in that way. It's a little long, but it wasn't. That first one didn't seem as long as the Forgotten Waters games, and I would say that. Totally blanking.
It does feel like, since you do kind of know where you're going and the end point, the spot on the map, it does feel like you have a little more control as to how quickly you can progress the game. Yeah, I like that part of it. I had only played Forgotten Waters, I think, 2 or 3 times, so I don't have as much experience as you, but definitely are both long. I didn't feel like this was very big noticeable amount shorter, but it could just be because I hadn't played Forgotten Waters in a while. So yeah, it is a long game. If you don't want to sit you can stop anytime, I believe, and save your game, but I don't know if we're just we're not really the type of gamers to do that. We just want to sit down and play through the entire thing. But you can do that. I don't know how easy that would be. It'd probably be fine, I would think.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be an easy thing to do.
But yeah, if you're not willing to dedicate at least
3-4 hours,
bare minimum 2 hours.
Yeah,
more likely 3+ hours. Then this probably isn't going to be a great fit. But yeah, it does bring a lot of what I enjoyed. It's going to be compared to Forgotten Waters. It's just what we're doing. It brings a lot of the stuff I really loved from that into this with the story and the humor throughout the story. I really enjoyed that as well here, and kind of the customization of characters, and even some funny little Mad Libs that you kind of fill out on your character sheet that go and fill in for your backstory and possibly your ending that you can earn. So it brought a lot of that I liked, as well as that worker placement aspect on that, the timed worker placement. So it's not just slow down, analyze, look at all of these options. Like I think you've said in the past, it's just handled perfectly, that it shows you some symbols that kind of tell you what those actions do, but you don't know exactly what they are. So you can just go out and place your worker there and then resolve it. I really enjoy that system. Although I feel I love the dice checks that they added instead of just a d20. And I think as you upgraded in Forgotten Waters, you got like +1 every time to that roll. I love here that as you upgrade, you get a better bonus die. So if you upgrade this trait once, you get a d4 to roll along with your d20, or then a d6 or a d8. I love that. I think that is a huge improvement to the original system. But I felt like we weren't doing that worker placement or the checking as much as in Forgotten Waters. And it maybe near the end we did a lot more, but there was a section where it felt like 30 or 40 minutes we were on that same page, not touching that map book.
We were just kind of resolving story-driven stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was going to ask you which dice check thing you liked better. So yeah, I think for me they're about the same. I do like this one probably just as much. So I don't think it like took anything away from it. But yeah, maybe it might just be that fact that we didn't get to do it all that often that made it seem like it wasn't like, oh, this is so much better than the original. Maybe with more checks it would have, and maybe, I don't know, in the future games there might be that. But yeah, in Forgotten Waters you kind of keep that book out the whole entire time, and this one says, oh, you can actually, I don't remember what the title was, the person that keeps the bookkeeper, that keeps the book.
I don't know what they could be called.
Can put the map thing away for a little bit, or the book, and I was like, I wonder why it says that. So we just left it open, and then it was like 30 minutes before we used it again. And I was like, that's fine. I mean, but it's very story driven.
Yeah, they filled it with a lot of good stuff, but it was just not what I was expecting, I think.
Right.
Which, I mean, I'm kind of torn as to like, should it just be more of the same, because it's a limited amount in Forgotten Waters. So I'm fine with totally just more of the same. But it did seem like they mixed it up a little bit as well, and I just probably wasn't expecting that, so I don't know if that's a negative or a positive or a mixed. It's just something that I noticed. But yeah, another thing that they added, which I had to ask if this appeared in any Forgotten Waters, and that was improv, where it will kind of prompt a character or a player there'll be a scenario, and you'll have kind of a choice to make, or you'll be kind of arguing with a character in the game, and it'll tell this player to, in character, try to convince someone of an argument or something. And a lot of times you'd have the other people at the table then judge whether you succeeded or failed. And that's not really my strong suit. When I first saw that being introduced, I'm like, oh no, little uncomfortable with the thought of that. It can be fun, but I think that makes this game a lot more group dependent than Forgotten Waters. That's one thing that I loved about Forgotten Waters, is that you could kind of decide how much you wanted to get into character, and you could enjoy it equally, just kind of playing the game and observing these crazy characters, or even start to get into it yourself, but you were never forced to. And this kind of force you to. So that's kind of a mixed aspect for me personally, especially as well that you get judged on it, which
right seems weird.
Like, either it's like, oh, you didn't do good, oh great, that's feel good, or we don't want to fail, so we're obviously going to succeed this thing.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I never got to do that, so I guess I didn't really get to feel that. But it did
probably
make me
the two people that wanted to the least got to do it.
Yeah, it did make me a little nervous, and that made it feel probably more role playing gamey than Forgotten Waters was. So if you want Forgotten Waters plus a little more role playing, I think this one would be perfect for that. That is a good point to bring that one up. But yeah, otherwise, the stories I think the story that we had was just as good, if not maybe better. I'm trying to remember. There's some definitely some good ones in Forgotten Waters, but this one was pretty solid.
Yeah.
And otherwise, a lot of the things were pretty similar.
Yeah.
There were some kind of additional before you could kind of get these treasures. There's still the treasures.
Different types, kind of
different
separated.
types. Yep. And then there's kind of a weapon that you can have, and then it kind of allows you to roll. I don't think that was in Forgotten Waters.
I don't think so. I really enjoyed all of those. Like I said, I don't have as much experience, so I was wondering how similar those were. I like that you kind of had slots for the specific types of items and what they did. Again, I don't know, maybe they did similar things back then, but I thought, oh, this seems new and different and fresh.
Yeah, and I liked the so there's followers that you can get and how that interacts with the time track of the game. I thought that was a little more interesting than maybe Forgotten Waters was. There's not really that much interaction with what happens in Forgotten Waters. You just kind of will randomly sometimes add I don't remember what it was exactly called, but like something that shows like you're progressing in the game, and because you don't want to go too long or whatever. And this had a similar thing, but just the way it was done seemed a little bit more interesting. Otherwise, I really liked this one after this one play, and I think it's right up there for me with Forgotten Waters, even with that improv aspect and kind of a few of those things. I would say this one felt a little bit more like story. It felt even more story-driven than Forgotten Waters, and it felt like there was more of a strict path you were going on. I don't know if maybe Forgotten Waters is a strict path, or sort of a strict path. You just don't notice it.
Yeah, you just don't see
but
it,
on
really.
the map here, you can definitely tell, what you're doing, so it feels much more like, well, we're going... I mean, you make choices on which way to go, but overall, you kind of know, like, oh, this choice is going to... then we're going to do this probably versus that. Whereas in Forgotten Waters, it didn't really feel like that. Even though it may have been, it just didn't feel that way. Otherwise, I'd probably give this one, for one play, probably around a 9 as well, 8.5 or 9. Have to obviously try the other one, the other scenarios and see kind of how those stories play out. But I'm definitely excited to do it. And I think, seeing where you're going to end up, I think makes the game seem shorter than in Forgotten Waters, even if they are around the same length.
I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I feel improve from Forgotten Waters, but then also maybe a couple things that... and also the standees are very loose in their base. Some of them are very bad. And then we are playing on a rug, so maybe it's not the most stable thing, but they...
I didn't ever notice that really happening with the Forgotten Waters ones. I don't know what they changed, but...
maybe they're bigger because there's some pretty big standees on the bases, but... so those are a bit problematic. A couple of things that maybe aren't as good. Theme-wise, I'm not sure which I lean towards. I love the pirate theme, but I think they do a lot of things with this, more fantasy type theme. I would give this probably an 8.5 up to a 9 because the experience is still something so unique in our collection. I'm sure there's a lot of people that play games like these, but it's very unique to me, and this probably includes my Forgotten Waters rating as well. Just kind of the whole system has grown on me from initially being like, not so sure. It's probably up towards an 8.5 to 9 for me. At this point, I really, really enjoy this system, even if it maybe goes just a little too much into role playing in this version.
Yeah. I guess. I guess going back, one last thing. I don't know how, and maybe I don't know if you felt this or not. This almost made Forgotten Waters in some ways seem grindier than what this ended up being. I don't know if it's because that map was laid out.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one felt more like whatever. But
just,
it almost gives it like a grindy feel, even though
yeah.
when I'm actually playing that, it doesn't feel grindy. I don't know why.
Yeah, it does, because you just don't know at what point you are, really, in that one. And this one you do, you feel the progress being made. The other one, it's like you don't really, you kind of do, but not totally. And as well, and one more thing.
One more thing.
Like the keywords, we're Columbo here. The keywords in, like, does anyone have this title? Which I got like 10 titles in this one. And I don't remember actually having them that often in Forgotten Waters. Then maybe from your more experience, those did happen more often. I just felt like they did come up a little more often in this one.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a little more enjoyable versus just from my little experience with Forgotten Waters. I just thought there were a bunch where it was like, it didn't seem like those came into play.
Yeah, I would agree. It did seem like even in this one play, they came up, and we actually had them more often than I ever remember having them in Forgotten Waters. Like, sometimes we would, but this one it definitely seemed like we had them more often.
Yeah.
I would agree. But yeah.
And one more thing.
Oh,
the Mad Libs, the endings, I think there's less options for your endings. I think there were like 3 options. Now there's 2 options. It's easier to get to your best ending, which I liked more options there. And I guess what was the leveling up in Forgotten Waters? Did you read something every time that you did that? And this one is not really that. I think that I would have enjoyed a little text there.
I agree. I think I would have liked more of the backstory or whatever kind of being described throughout. But yeah, I would agree that was probably better done in Forgotten Waters. Yeah.
But that's everything.
That is everything on the Freelancers, a Crossroads game. If you want to see a little bit more of some of the stuff in the box, you can check out our unboxing video. But otherwise, we hope to see you on that video. And as always, don't forget to
keep on nibbling
on our content.